Good morning, good people, brothers, sisters, and beautifully defined siblings in the movement. Welcome to the unapologetic voice of labor, equity, and action. This is the CWA Hour Power Radio Show where we amplify the organizers, uplift the everyday workers, and honor the giants whose shoulders we stand on right here on KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM in the heart of Houston, Texas. If you're riding through H-Town or just fired up anywhere in the world, stream us live at kyokradio.org on the CWA Strong app or catch the replay anytime by searching CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Because this space, this time, it's about us. That's right, it's about us. We're talking union contracts, organizing victories, labor rights, human dignity, fair pay, and bold everyday resistance to injustice in every form. So whether you're on the job, in your car, at the kitchen table, or deep in the fight, lean in. Honk your horns if you stand with workers. Throw a fist up if you know your worth. Joining me today are the fire starters and truth tellers, Mikeya Jones, Sir Reginald Small, Timmia Wiley, David Marshall. So buckle up, beloveds, because the power we build together, the power is ours. Let's get into it. Our union voices are ringing in every district from Alaska to Maine, Texas to Minnesota, Canada to Puerto Rico, because we don't play at CWA. Our union brothers, sisters, and siblings at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have been outside for 3 years striking on the picket lines. And yet, while they're striking, they're still churning out the news with facts for you and me. Let's show our support to them by making sure we subscribe to unionprogress.com. Once you subscribe to this free publication, how about going over and donating to their strike fund at cwa.org/PPG-donate. Today, we're heading to Greensboro, North Carolina, to highlight a woman who proves that everyday people can create extraordinary change. Her name is Nicky Boyte, and she's reminding the nation that disability rights and human rights. Nicky is an organizer with ADAPT of North Carolina, a grassroots disability rights group that's part of a powerful national movement. She's not a politician. She's not a celebrity. She's an everyday woman who decided that living with a disability shouldn't mean living without freedom. Nicky Boyte has cerebral palsy, and she moved to North Carolina hoping for better accessibility and quality of life. But what she found instead were barriers to healthcare, mobility, and independence. Instead of giving up, she turned her frustration into action. That's when she connected with ADAPT, a national organization that's been fighting for accessibility and independence since the late 1970s. Here's something you may not know. ADAPT originally stood for Americans Disabled for Accessible Public Transit. Back then, their mission was focused on making sure people who used wheelchairs could ride the bus, something that wasn't possible in most cities. But as the movement grew, so did their mission. Today, ADAPT isn't just about transportation, it's about liberation. They fight for community-based living, home care, health care, access, housing, and equality. Their message is clear. Our homes, not nursing homes. Through ADAPT, Nicky helped organize rallies and actions across North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, demanding that leaders uphold the rights of disabled residents. Her rallying cry was simple but powerful. Accessibility is freedom, and freedom is a human right. Think about that for a second. We often talk about freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to vote, but Nicky reminds us that freedom also means being able to live your life with dignity, to move through your community without barriers holding you back, to have access to the same opportunities and independence as everyone else. That's what human rights looks like in practice. Nicky Boyte doesn't stand alone. She's part of a long, proud legacy that connects the civil rights movement to the disability rights movement. Just as marchers in Selma fought for right to vote, activists like Nicky fight for the right to live freely without being confined or forgotten. When people are denied access to healthcare, housing, or transportation, that's not just a policy issue, that's a human rights issue. And Nicky Boyte's voice reminds us that inclusion isn't optional, it's essential. Her activism teaches us something powerful. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. You just have to have heart. Whether she's organizing a protest, mentoring others with disabilities, or simply rolling forward with determination, Nicky shows us what courage looks like. And that true equality must include everybody and everybody. So today we honor Nicky Boyte, an everyday citizen, an advocate, and a freedom fighter in her own right. From Greensboro to the state capitol, her message echoes loud and clear. Accessibility is not an accommodation, it's liberation. And that's today's Human Rights Highlight, because every movement starts with someone who refuses to stay silent. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. And if you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting KYOK Radio and pressing the Listen Live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on KYOK 1140 AM. The CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and Amazon Music. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected. Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Up next, we have Reggie introducing us to a new segment. Good morning, Reggie.
Good morning, Errol Minor, and good morning to our KYOK radio listeners. I am and I remain Reginald Small, a proud CWA member and activist. And guess what? It's time for something new here on our Power Radio. We're bringing in a fresh voice, a real talker, and a brother who's not afraid to dig into these issues that hit home.
That's right. It's time for the Marshall Minute with David Marshall. If you've been listening, you know that he's my bestie, low key. Each week, he'll break down a hot topic that connects life and the labor movement, because when we live better, we fight stronger.
And I got a little problem, Mikeya Jones, with that bestie statement, but I think that was a swipe at me. I'm grown enough and old enough to take it, and I like David just enough not to be jealous. So let's lean in and listen close. Here's David Marshall with the Marshall Minute.
All right. Good morning, fam. Welcome to the Marshall Minute and your hot topic of the week right here on the CWA Hour of Power this week. We're going to dive into some stuff that, I think that will be very, very helpful in our everyday lives. So you've all heard the saying, actions speak louder than words. And when it comes to parenting, that couldn't be more true. We are our kids' first teachers, their first role models, their biggest inspirations, and often the people they need the most. But here's the real question. What are we showing them? Are we teaching them what it means to live with balance and joy, or are we intentionally showing them that being busy and burned out is just a part of everyday life? Because burnout doesn't affect us. It touches every part of our lives, our families, our relationships, and the people who depend on us most. And when we're running on fumes, our patience wears thin, our energy fades, and it becomes harder to be fully present. Sometimes the best way for us to show up for our children is to show up for ourselves. And that means we need to stop and make good decisions, set healthy boundaries, and make our own well-being a priority, not an afterthought. And when I was thinking about this segment, the thing that I thought about was that, I hear people say this, and I'm guilty of saying it. I die for my kids. And most people that have children feel the same way. But what I needed to ask you is, would you live for them? Would I make changes and eat healthy for them? Would I work out and exercise for them? Would I get checkups and go to the doctor for them? Because at the end of it all, our kids don't need martyrs, they need role models. And it starts with nourishing ourselves, our mind, body, and spirit, getting enough sleep, moving our bodies, finding moments of peace that aren't luxuries. They're essential to our well-being. And when we feel good physically, our minds are clearer, our moods are steadier, and our hearts are more open. A happy, healthy parent raises happy, healthy children. They see our habits, they feel our energy, and when we model balance, eat right, and take care of our mental health, we then give ourselves permission to slow down. So our kids learn to value those things too. So today, think about what you're teaching through your actions, because children aren't just listening, they're watching. And when we take care of ourselves, we're not being selfish. We're showing our kids that what love in action really looks like. And that's a lesson that lasts a lifetime. And that brings me to our new series, Weekly Wellness, where every week, Mikeya, my BFF, will share simple, real-life tips that'll help you care for your mind, body, and spirit. Because when we're well, our families thrive. And this has been David Marshall, and you've been tuned into the Marshall Minute, where living is the greatest act of love.
Thank you so much, David, for that inspiring segment. And I hope Reginald was listening. That was so powerful. Living well is part of fighting for justice, as well as being my friend.
Yeah, I forgot to add coffee. Coffee is part of living well, and I think we do a lot of coffee up here.
All right, because we all know that, because strong unions build strong families. And when we take care of ourselves, we actually take care of the movement.
That was so dry, Reginald, but we're not going to say
It was
anything.
very dry. It was very dry. I own it. I'm too old to try to cover it up. It was very dry. I got some words for David and Mikeya after the show.
You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM in the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the Listen Live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeart, Radio Pod Chaser app, and Amazon Music. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. Up next, we're going to have Reginald Small leading this next segment, The Reality of Poverty in America, SNAP Survival and the Struggle for Dignity. Back to you, Reginald.
Thank you, Errol. And once again, I am Reginald Small, and I am here with Errol, Timmia, and the BFF twins, Mikeya and David. So today we're cutting straight to the heart of America, poverty, and the reality of hunger. Here's the truth. Poverty crosses racial lines. It affects working families, seniors, and children of every color. And when you're hungry, you're hungry. Hunger doesn't care what color you are.
You're absolutely correct, Reginald. And it's time we talk about SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Millions of Americans rely on it just to eat. And in fiscal year 2024, about 41.7 million people, or roughly 1 in 8 Americans, were receiving SNAP benefits. And don't let anyone tell you that SNAP is a handout. The average benefit, listen to me closely, is just $187 a month per person.
And that's barely $6 a day.
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to tell you to feed yourself or your family. Meanwhile, there are people working 2 or 3 jobs and still need help to survive. And every time I see this, right, about the SNAP benefits, and we do the numbers, and it says, barely $6 a day. I mean, it's like, $6 a day to feed yourself. I'm like, I want people to stop with this notion that, like, how they have those commercials come on there, like, yeah, for 33 cents a day, you can feed a child. No, you can't. I've never went to the store and been able to buy anything for 33 cents that was able to feed me and somebody else for a week or a day or anything like that. I don't know what you're buying at the grocery store for 33 cents. I don't even know what costs 33 cents at the grocery store anymore. But let me tell you something. People aren't splurging and living luxurious off of $6 a day.
You can't get anything at the grocery store. Maybe an apple, maybe.
And it's gonna be a regular old Red Delicious. It's not gonna be a
A Honey Crisp. It's not going to be a Honey Crisp. No.
Not gonna be no Royal Galas or any of that.
You know what? You might be able to get 2 bananas because bananas are what, 38 cents a pound?
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what, if you break it down even further, SNAP families across every age, race, and income level, the numbers are staggering. Children under 18, they're at 39%. Adults 18 to 59, 52%. Seniors, 19%. And if you break it down even further to race and ethnicity, whites are at 35%, African Americans are at 26%, Hispanics are at 16%, Asians are at 4%, and Native Americans are at about 2%. And nearly 62% of households have children, while 37% include seniors or people with disabilities. These numbers show clearly that poverty and hunger are not confined to any particular group.
And the politics don't change reality. Even in counties that voted heavily Republican in 2020, SNAP participation grew significantly. Hunger doesn't check your ballot.
And think about this, Timmia. We've heard people claim SNAP keeps people shackled or that benefits are like feeding dependent pets. That's not just wrong. It's cruel. There are people out there like 83-year-old Betty who rely on SNAP to put food on the table. Should she re-enter the workforce to survive? Of course not.
And I mean, it just uncovers a whole bigger problem here. And I mentioned this last week, and it's stunning still to me that no matter how you view it or how you want to put it into some kind of silo or some kind of segment that you think SNAP is a handout or not, there is obviously a need in this nation right now for people before they even miss the benefit that they're going into panic. Grown men are crying because they really don't know how they're going to feed their families. So that means that there is definitely a need that needs to be addressed in our society. So that's why this conversation isn't just about food. It's about human rights. It's about labor rights. People who work deserve fair wages so that they don't have to rely on assistance. And until that happens, programs like SNAP are essential lifelines.
Right. And let's not forget that over 40% of SNAP participants live in working households, because we hear a lot of times, like you said, that we're just feeding people and people are lazy and all this stuff. And to me, I wouldn't care, because to me, food is a basic human right, but who am I? Anyway, so these are the same people that are serving your food, right? They're caring for the elderly, they're cleaning the hospitals and schools. Many of them are, quote, essential workers, end quote, and they were applauded during the pandemic. Those are your fast food workers, the workers that are making close to or next to the federal minimum wage that's still under $8.
And you're correct. Corporations benefit when they underpay workers. The Walmarts, the Amazons, the McDonald's, thousands of their employees rely on SNAP. It's basically taxpayers are subsidizing corporate profits while workers struggle to eat. It's a shame that at a multi-trillion-dollar corporation, the people that work there still qualify for every government benefit. That's why union and labor rights matter. Fair wages are a human right.
David, you are preaching this morning. You hear me? I mean, when we talk about hunger, don't let anyone frame it as a choice or a moral failure. It's policy and economic failure, and poverty isn't personal. Hunger doesn't care what color you are. And if you really want to talk about welfare or people that need assistance, why don't you talk about all of these companies that are have all of these corporate subsidies? They're the real welfare recipients, and don't let me call the list. Let me digress because I'm going too far.
You reaching over into my territory. That's the union busting.
Well, and then the audacity of I saw on, of course, TV. I still do watch the news. I know I'm one of the few, but a politician got on TV and said that, the people need to rely upon the social networks and churches. So 43 million people that you done created some kind of problem with, and now you want to dump them on and say that they need to go to food banks and churches. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's not even real.
What really killed me is that one of these same trillion-dollar companies decided that they want to offer $20 or $25 Thanksgiving meals so that people
Wow.
can afford to
Yes.
feed their families on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
But you're the same company
Yes.
that's not paying your workers a living wage and overworking them and making them work on Thanksgiving for the most part. And what's crazy to
Mm-hmm.
me and what really gets me the most, because I went grocery shopping for the first time, like did a real big shop, and I just, took my time throughout the grocery store and looked at the prices. And it's really bizarre and baffling to me that these places have already started like reducing not only just the price of things, but the size of things to
Mm-hmm.
accommodate what's happening right now. So I don't feel like this is something
Mm-hmm.
that's just going to be short term. I really do think that we have to like buckle up and strap in for a wild ride here, because I'm not, I don't want to say their name on the show because obviously they haven't done anything to us yet, but a loaf of bread for them usually costs $4.69. That was the average cost. Now they're selling half loaves at like $1.69. And I'm like, well, first of all, you should have been selling half loaves of bread, because by the time you get to the end of the loaf is molded anyway. But the fact that these companies were able to come out with packaging, pricing, and a smaller size item all within the last 6 weeks lets me know that it's not just something one off. Companies don't just go and change all of that willy nilly.
Yeah, what they're realizing is that they know that the cost of food is not going down.
Right.
Isn't changing, and so they're having to accommodate that so that they can stay in business, and also for the shopper to still be able to feel that they can go in and spend some money and get something. Of course, I don't know how you're gonna still feed the family of four with a half a loaf of bread. I'm not sure how that's gonna work, but nonetheless, that's what they're doing. So there is a bigger problem there, Mikeya.
And it's all about greed. You should not have billionaires and hungry kids in the same space.
You
I mean,
shouldn't.
how do they become billionaires? Exploiting workers. That's usually how people become billionaires. They get cheap labor to create a product that they can sell and make a bunch of money off of. And so at the end of the day, we need to be about helping each other and making sure folks have a living wage so that they can provide for themselves and give them that opportunity. Because a lot of times it's not laziness. It's just there's no opportunity there.
Well, let's go ahead and throw in there. Nobody can live off of $7.25 an hour, which is the federal minimum wage. So let's just be realistic about it.
And when the
Okay,
major
Reginald.
corporations are the places that are paying the people the $7.25, and they're also the billionaires, and they're also the faith leaders, and they're also the politicians all at the same time, we're really in a, you know,
We're really in a bind, and it's not ethical, and people don't care about ethics anymore. It's just about lining their pockets and me when it comes to these corporations. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, because I can tell you, I when I check out and I don't see anybody checking us out, that should mean the prices should be a lot lower, because they don't have that labor cost anymore. But
okay, because you couldn't find, I'm not trying to be funny or make light of the situation, but you could not find a parking spot at the first of the month in a grocery store before. That's all I'm gonna say. The grocery store is empty yesterday.
Yeah. Well, we don't like to talk about something just to talk about it. So here's the action item. What can we do? Be generous as you can as we go through this difficult time. I don't like to say during this season, because there's a problem here in our country that's going to far exceed Thanksgiving and Christmas. So be mindful of your banks and what you can donate to the churches and all of that, who are trying to fill in the gap during this time of need. So be generous in your giving. Back to you, Errol.
You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Amazon Music. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, CWA National Human Rights. To stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. Up next, we have Mikeya Jones with Gratitude, Heritage, and Solidarity, the Power of November.
Hey fam, it's me again, Mikeya Jones, your favorite yapper. You guys know I love to talk, especially about different awarenesses. And this month we're going to do something a little bit different. So here on CWA Our Power Hour, we're going to remind each other that the union power doesn't just stop at the job site. Like Reginald says, we have to stand in solidarity and live it, and it flows through every part of our communities. So November is a month that calls us to slow down, look around, and give thanks. But it's also time to wake up to the things we sometimes take for granted, our rights, our history, and the people who fought and still fight for both. This month, we honor Indigenous American Heritage Month, recognizing the first peoples of this land, their strength, their stewardship, and their struggles for justice that still continue today. And let's not forget that labor justice and land justice are connected. Many Indigenous communities have fought for the fair treatment and protection of their sacred lands and the right to self-determination. And those values echo deeply in our union movement. So this month, pause and take a moment to learn the real history behind the land you live on, support Indigenous-owned businesses, artists, and causes. And as CWA members, let's honor their resilience by standing against exploitation in all of its forms, because solidarity means no one gets left behind. Not on the job, not in history, and not in the movement. Now let's talk about Thanksgiving. This is a holiday we often associate with family, food, and football. But for many workers, especially in retail, healthcare, and service industries, Thanksgiving isn't a day off. It's a double shift. So when you're sitting down at the table, remember the grocery store workers who stock the shelves, the hospital staff still on the clock, and the delivery drivers making sure families can connect. And those people that you guys love to harass on Black Friday that now turned into Thursday afternoon, let's not forget those either. And if you want to shop or celebrate responsibly, look for union-made and ethically sourced products. That's how we live our values, by making sure our dollars match our principles. Because every can of food, every candle, every product we buy can either feed corporate greed or fuel fair wages. Another thing I'm going to talk about is just gratitude, but not just the kind that you post about. Let's show active gratitude, the kind that organizes, uplifts, and pays it forward. Thank your UN steward. Check in on your coworkers. Support a strike or a rally. Donate to a food drive. Go to a community event. And when we show up for each other, we remind the world that solidarity is our superpower. And we're not just workers. We're dreamers, caregivers, freedom fighters, and change makers. Gratitude keeps us grounded, but solidarity keeps us growing. And lastly, but not least, next week is Veterans Day. So it's a time to salute those who served, those who lost their lives for serving, and those who are serving right now while also not being paid. But beyond the ceremonies and flags, let's remember that many veterans return home only to face another battle for healthcare, housing, and fair paying jobs. Let's keep in mind that a lot of our veterans do receive SNAP benefits. A lot of our veterans have to go to the VA, and they do need treatment and things like that after fighting for us and standing for us in this country. So as we close out November, let's carry both gratitude and grit. Let's honor Native voices, uplift veterans, support workers, and live union strong every day. And I really want to say happy Veterans Day to my bestie on the line. Happy Veterans Day, David. David is a veteran, guys. And what we're going to do is we're going to pause to honor the brave men, women, and siblings who serve this nation. Veterans Day is not just a holiday. It's a reminder, a call to remember the sacrifices made not just in battle, but also in the struggle for dignity when the uniform comes off. So before we go any further, from all of us here at Hour of Power, we say thank you to every veteran, every active duty service member, every military family, and every survivor of war. Your service, your discipline, your courage, they echo far beyond the battlefield.
So all right, so Mikeya, I think this will be a great spot right here to talk about the history behind Veterans Day. Are you good with that? Well, we can talk about that.
Go ahead, take your time, Pastor.
All right, so let's go back to where it all began. Veterans Day started as what was the name of it? Armistice Day.
Armistice Day.
Armistice Day, yes. And so that marked the end of World War I on November 11th, 1918. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent across Europe. And the following year, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as a day to honor those who fought for peace. But after World War II and the Korean War, America realized that recognition couldn't just stop with the veterans of one conflict. So in 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower, who himself was a World War II general, signed legislation changing Armistice Day to Veterans Day, honoring all who served in the U.S. Armed Forces. So Veterans Day isn't just about one generation or one war. It's about all who wore the uniform, from the Tuskegee Airmen to today's service members still standing and watching around the world.
Awesome, Errol. Hey, thank you, Mikeya, for the shout out for Veterans Day. I appreciate that. And like I said earlier, like she said earlier on the show, service doesn't end when you clock out. Well, the same goes for veterans. As a veteran of the United States Marine Corps myself, many of my brothers and sisters who served with me, we came home to find a whole nother kind of battle, a battle to fight for fair wages, safe jobs, and respect. So that's why you'll see so many veterans in our union, including right here at CWA. When a veteran joins a union, we're continuing in that spirit of service. This time, we're not serving our country, we're serving our fellow workers. And the VA, or the Veterans Administration, was created to care for those who serve for their country. But let's be real, the VA can only do so much without the public support and accountability. We, the people, owe all our veterans more than words. We owe them health care that heals, homes that shelter, and jobs that pay a living wage. Because just saying thank you for your service means nothing if a veteran's sleeping on the street, fighting PTSD without any help, or just struggling to put food on the table. That's why union matters, because we fight for the same things that all of us veterans fight for: equality, dignity, and freedom, especially from exploitation.
Absolutely. Veterans Day is not Memorial Day. We don't mourn the fallen. We honor the living. We recognize the strength it takes to serve and then come home to rebuild. It's also a day to acknowledge the hidden wounds, the mental health struggles, the reintegration challenges, the stigma that too many veterans face in silence. Veterans are more than a symbol of patriotism. They're a reflection of resilience, from women who broke barriers in combat zones to Black, Latino, Indigenous, and LGBTQ+IA veterans who served the nation that didn't always serve them and still don't serve them back. Their courage challenges us to keep building a country worthy of their sacrifice.
So as we recognize this Veterans Day, let's make it more than a poster parade. Let's reach out, hire a veteran, listen to their story, support programs that feed, house, and heal. And let's also remember that some of the greatest labor leaders and civil rights fighters were veterans, people who brought discipline, leadership, and service into the struggle for justice, like my favorite queen, Harriet Tubman.
Well, and as you folks know, and I said this earlier about with kids, you've heard statements like, people would die for their country. But like I said in the early segment, will you live for it? Will you live for justice? Will you live for equality? Will you live for your fellow man and woman? especially those who gave pieces of themselves defending it. Veterans, we fought to protect the American we, not the American me. So let's all do our part to keep fighting for a nation that keeps its promises to those who kept it free.
And so, to all veterans listening, we salute you, we honor you, and we stand with you.
This Veterans Day, remember, service never ends. It simply transforms.
And from all of us at the Hour of Power radio show, we thank you for your service and we thank you for your strength. Solidarity forever and happy Veterans Day. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the Listen Live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. Back to you, Errol.
No, keep it going, because we're going right into surveillance and fear, and you're opening it up. Go right ahead.
So today, we're tackling a topic that hits an intersection of fear, control, and labor, which is surveillance and fear, ICE, and immigration detention. And we're diving into how systems built in the name of security often end up breaking down communities and how fear is used as a tool to divide working people instead of protecting them.
Exactly correct, Mikeya. ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement. It was created after 9/11 under the promises of protecting the nation. But what we've seen is a system that often detains, monitors, and dehumanizes people, and sometimes for civil infractions and not criminal ones.
And while people think of ICE as sometimes something that only impacts immigrants, the truth is its shadow touches every workplace. The constant fear of raids, surveillance, and deportation doesn't just break families, it breaks solidarity. Workers are too scared to speak out about unsafe conditions or wage theft. This goes deep.
It's real deep. And that fear doesn't stay in one community. I mean, it spreads. When one group of workers is kept quiet, all workers lose power. That's how exploitation actually works, by isolation, control, and division.
Okay, so now, David, you've been studying how the legal side of this works, right? Or in some cases doesn't. So can you talk to us a little bit about what's being lost here when it comes to due process?
Yes, thanks, Mikeya. Yeah, what's being negated here is the very principle of due process, which is the constitutional promise that everyone in America, citizen or not, is entitled to fair treatment under the law. The Constitution is clear. In the Fifth Amendment to the United States, it says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. In Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, it says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. Notice it didn't say citizen. Under ICE detention, many people are held for months or even years without a trial. They're denied legal counsel, but often don't understand their rights and are moved between facilities without warning. That's not due process. That's indefinite limbo. And it matters beyond immigration, because when a government body can detain somebody without a trial, that's a blueprint. It sets a precedence for what can happen to any of us if we fall outside of the system's favor: workers, protesters, or anybody challenging their power.
And let's be real about it, David. When due process gets compromised for one group, it gets weakened for everyone. And we've seen that throughout history. Once a system learns it can get away with cutting corners, it doesn't stop just at the border. The same fear ICE uses to silence undocumented workers is the same fear corporations use to silence union workers. And the fear of losing your job, your stability, your voice, and it's all connected.
It is, and we cannot ignore the labor side of this. Many undocumented workers do the hardest, most essential jobs like agriculture, construction, caregiving, yet they're treated as disposable. When you live under threat, you don't file complaints, you don't join a union, and you don't demand fair pay. That's exactly what corporations want, a workforce scared to fight back.
And then there's the reality of this. Y'all mentioned fear, but there's dignity and respect here involved in this as well. I mean, how is it that someone can just walk up to you with some kind of mask on and drag you out of the car and treat you as if you're not even human? That's a big
Right.
concern for me. I mean, dignity and respect that we're allowing from the top down to disrespect people. And I don't care whether citizenship is based upon what they look like, what they sound like, because they might be running a food truck or they're at Home Depot, and you're assuming that they're not legal. So you're classing them and you're putting them over in a category to be disrespected. I just have a real problem with that. And so that's where solidarity has to step in. Labor isn't about citizenship. It's actually about humanity. A large part of labor is about humanity. Every worker deserves safety, dignity, respect, and a fair chance to live without fear.
Absolutely correct. And fear, it is the oldest, touch your neighbor and say, oldest union busting tool there is. And it keeps people from trusting each other. And when we start believing that someone else's struggle isn't our problem, that's when they've won.
And, okay, so we've identified the problem, right? So where do we go from here? First, we have to start by naming what's happening, not as a political issue, but as a human one. When due process is denied, when families are separated, which that just breaks my heart. I hate when I heard about that, when those kids are being that and they still haven't been reunited. That breaks my heart. And when workers are silenced, that's a breakdown of everything democracy is supposed to stand for. There is a reason why these rules and these processes were implemented. There is a reason why we're supposed to have due process. Like, there is a reason why a lot of these people even come to this country looking for this American dream that we've all been sold on our whole entire lives.
And Mikeya, when you bring that up, at one point when this first started, it was something that you heard on the news, you didn't know anyone, or it hadn't really touched your particular community. Now we're hearing people, we know people, we have neighbors that are being impacted. We have friends this is a very diverse society that we live in. We have friends that are being impacted. I'm firsthand hearing stories. We have friends now who are participating in trying to help protect people. This is deep.
It is deep.
Yes.
I remember I was thinking, I was just in my thoughts thinking, where in my house could I hide people? And then I went further into my thoughts thinking, would I be the one that need to be hid?
Right.
It takes you back to the Diary of Anne Frank or something.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
This is what it feels like.
Especially when there's no clear, like, again, I don't know if anybody else remembers, but I feel like we were told that it was supposed to be criminals and horrible, terrible, terrible people. I just saw on the news a woman being detained from work. She worked at a daycare, and they went and snatched her up at the daycare in front of all of those children.
But you said a key word there. They said criminals. Now they're twisting that around, or they're padding that word criminal, saying that if you're here illegally, you are a criminal.
Yep.
Well, and the thing is, we can't forget that justice itself can't exist without fairness. So it doesn't matter if it's at Home Depot, the daycare, courtroom, workplace, or the border. Due process at the end of the day should be the line in the sand that we draw and refuse to cross.
You're absolutely correct, David. And I think that we might need to reach out to one of the friends of CWA and the Our Power Radio Show, Patrice Lawrence, Executive Director of Undocu Black Network, and maybe she can shed a little light on this situation as well. And what we've also have to remember is the labor movements have always stood up for the voiceless. From child labor to prison labor to migrant labor, this is no different. And protecting workers means protecting all workers.
And that means supporting policies that keep families together. that protect whistleblowers and that make sure no one's dignity depends on their papers.
And we can't let exploitation win. When solidarity unites us, power shifts, and so does justice.
And that's it right there. The fight for human rights is the fight for labor rights. And until every worker, every family, and every person has equal protection under the law, we've still got work to do. Because when we organize against fair, we organize against freedom. So we're going to just put a pin in that, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have to, I would like to revisit it. I don't know about you all, but things are getting scary. And the things that we're seeing on the news, the things that people that our administration are in charge are saying about how it's going to get more violent.
I'm more concerned, Mikey, about the things you're not hearing on the news, because I'm concerned that the news is being watered down. I'm concerned with the personal testimonies that you're hearing. When a friend told me over in Washington State that she was in a car and she's calling me saying, I believe it's ICE that's pulled these people over, or that I just passed a food truck and there are all these unmarked cars around it, and these people, it looks as if they're being harassed. Those are the stories that I am concerned with, the stuff that's not being reported, and the people who really don't have a voice in this at all. That's where my concern is. And I'm sorry, Mikey, I cut you off.
No, that's fine, because that brings, another point. I watched an interview with a particular person on a particular network that lasts a particular amount of minutes the other day. And we were told that, again, things might become more aggressive, more violent, because the fact that people are being literally ripped from their cars in front of their children, cars are being shot into with children in them, people are being snatched out of their beds in the middle of the night while they're sleeping for no reason, by people that, again, aren't there. ICE agents, or the people that can be ICE agents, don't have a uniform. They don't have a badge to show you. They don't always show you a warrant or paperwork or anything like that. And we were warned. I'm not going to say we were told. We were warned that it's going to get worse, or that particular person doesn't feel like they're doing enough, or they're aggressive enough. So I just really hope that we can come together as human beings and protect each other from injustice.
And Mikeya, keep your hand on the mute button, because you might have to mute me when I say this, but
well, don't say it.
One.
So we're going to wrap that up, and moving right along. Welcome back, family, to another powerful episode of the Our Power Radio Show, where we lift our voices, link our struggles, and keep our eyes on liberation through labor, equity, and unity. You're tuned into the Union Dialogue, conversations that build us, our weekly deep dive into how we can strengthen the we and we the people. So tonight's conversation is called Rowing in the Same Direction. It's about labor, civil rights, and grassroots actions, and the hard truth that unity doesn't happen by accident. So the question we're asking today cuts deep. Will enough of us still choose to row in the same direction? So today, joining us for this important conversation, my BFF David Marshall, our good friend and political director, along with our powerhouse sister Timmia and Errol from the Our Power family. Let's get into it, guys.
All right,
Let's
David,
get
are you
into
there?
it, guys.
Okay, sorry. I had a little technical difficulty there.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's always an honor to sit at this table and talk about the movement. It's not memory, but it's a mission. And so this topic, rowing in the same direction, is one that hits home for me, because when we look back at our history, whether it was labor organizing in Flint, or the Montgomery bus boycott, or the March on Washington, those victories happened because those victories didn't happen because everyone agreed on everything. They happened because people decided that progress mattered more than pride. But lately, I've been asking myself this hard question: will enough of us choose to row in the same direction? Because right now it feels like we got a lot of folks paddling, but a lot of them are rowing against each other.
That's real. That's real, brother. what I'm seeing, especially in my generation, is that people care. But we've been raised in a culture of division. Social media rewards outrage more than understanding. Politics have become about proving your side right, not finding what's right for the people. And in that chaos, we forget something simple. You can't move the boat forward if everybody's rowing in opposite directions. Whether it's civil rights or labor rights, we need to remind folks that the fight for justice isn't a solo act, it's a team sport.
And
Exactly. And now add in on this, right? Because sometimes our differences get weaponized on purpose. Corporations, political operatives, media, they all benefit when working people are divided. They feed us fear, misinformation, and ego because the divided people can't organize, they can't bargain, and they can't win. But the truth is, labor, civil rights, women's rights, LGBTQIA plus rights, they're all part of the same current. We either row together toward justice or we drift backwards into chaos. And so the real challenge isn't just can we row together, it's will we choose to.
And that's the key word, choose, because unity isn't automatic. Unity is a decision. And in the labor movement, we call it solidarity. You know, standing together, even when it's uncomfortable. In civil rights, it was called a coalition, bringing Black, white, brown, LGBTQIA, working class, and faith-based allies all into the same struggle. And I think that's what we're missing today, mutual respect. You don't have to agree with every topic or every slogan, but you do have to respect the mission. So if our goal is justice, then we got to be big enough to make room for more voices on the same boat.
Now, hear me out, y'all. That means we have to practice political compromise, not in a weak way, but in a strategic way. You can't organize if you can't organize people. And people come with different perspectives. But as long as the compass points towards fairness, equity, and dignity, we can find a way to row together.
And let's be honest, right? Compromise doesn't mean giving up on your values. It means learning how to move together without capsizing the boat. In grassroots spaces, we call that coalition building. It's about creating enough shared purpose that we can weather the waves together. And in this political climate, where fear sells faster than hope, I think that's revolutionary.
So family, when we talk about rowing in the same direction, we're talking about something bigger than politics. You know, we're talking about a purpose, because the labor movement and civil rights movement were never separate rivers. They've always been waterways feeding the same ocean of justice. And if we can bring back mutual respect, start building real coalitions, and learn the art of compromise and not surrender, but strategize, then yes, we can still move this country forward. But it's going to take all of us paddling, sweating, believing, and refusing to quit halfway across the water.
All right. Thank you, Brother David. Thank you, Sister Timmia. Thank you, Sister Mikeya, and that old Reginald Small. That was a word right there. So this has been another episode of the Union Dialogue Conversation that builds us, part of the Our Power radio show. Remember, we are stronger when we move as one. We are freer when we build as many. And we are unstoppable when we row in the same direction. You can catch CWA Our Power Radio every week right here on KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the Listen Live option. Tune in live every Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Podchaser. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected. Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Until next week, keep your heart open, your mind sharp, and your solidarity strong. I'm Errol Minor, and this is Our Power Radio, where the people's voice is the people's power. Up next, we're going to be talking about the Union Buster of the Week with Timmia Wiley.
Good morning, KYOK listeners. This week on Union Buster of the Week, we are focusing on Activision Blizzard, one of the biggest names in the video game industry. You know them for titles like Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Diablo. But behind the scenes, workers have been fighting for basic labor rights, and the company hasn't made it easy. Most recently, the Diablo development team voted to unionize with the Communication Workers of America, joining hundreds of other Blizzard employees, including QA testers and Overwatch developers, who have also successfully formed unions. This is one of the largest union drives in the U.S. video game industry and a historic moment for labor rights in a sector where unionization has been rare. Activision Blizzard has a documented history of union busting tactics. The National Labor Relations Board found merit in charges that the company illegally surveilled employees and applied intimidation to discourage union activity. Managers held demoralizing meetings, encouraging staff to speak out against unions and enforce workplace policies that chilled protected organizing speech. The company even hired law firms specializing in union avoidance, making it clear that they were willing to invest heavily to resist worker organizing. Despite these tactics, the Diablo team and other Blizzard employees stood firm. Their success proves that organizing workers, even under intense corporate pressure, this is not just a win for gaming employees. It is a reminder to workers everywhere that collective action can overcome intimidation, surveillance, and coercion. The video game industry may look glamorous from the outside, but many workers face intense deadlines, long hours, and a culture that often overlooks labor rights. Activision Blizzard's resistance highlights that even in creative industries, worker rights must be fought for and defended. The courage of employees to unionize in spite of these challenges is an example for the industries. So what's the takeaway? Workers' rights are human rights. Let's not forget that. The Diablo team, QA testers, and Overwatch developers show that standing together can produce meaningful change. Activision Blizzard may try to resist, intimidate, or delay, but organizing works, and your power lies in unity. Remember, no matter your industry, your right to organize is protected, and collective action is your strongest tool. This has been your Union Buster of the Week. Back to you, Errol.
Thank you so much, Timmia.
But speaking between this Activision Blizzard thing and David's last thing, we were talking about, rowing and going against the current and how we have to do something together. Have y'all ever tried to row in a different direction or two at the same time?
Yes,
you end up
my
rowing
sister.
You end up rowing in a circle.
Going in circles.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And
but then you get your rhythm. Then you get your rhythm and you start going in the same direction after a little while.
And how do you get that rhythm? You communicate. You say, hey, you do this and I'll do this. And if we do this together, we can make this thing happen.
Okay, get organized.
All right, look like we're going to be continuing this talk on next week. An hour is not long enough to be with you, and a week is too long to be away from you. You have been tuned into the CWA Human Rights Hour Power broadcast. I hope something you heard today has inspired you to take action toward creating positive change in the world. Every person has the power to make a difference, no matter how small, and by working together, we can create a world where human rights are respected and valued. So I encourage each of you in the listening audience to reflect on your role in promoting human rights to effect change in your communities and beyond. Know that you are not alone in your quest for a more just and equitable world. When faced with injustice, it can be easy to lose hope and give up. But remember, justice may be slow like the truth, but when it finally comes, it will stand. Until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM, KYOKradio.org. See you next week.